Commissioner Blair,
Here.
Commissioner Denublio. Thank you. You have a quorum, ma'am.
And if we could all stand for the pledge. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The approval of minutes from November 5th, 2020. We should have received them in email. Do we have any comments?
I can't make a motion because I wasn't at the meeting,
Oh.
but I can read them.
Paul?
I can vote, but I can't make a motion.
Okay, so you're making a
Actually can. Approval of the minutes is just a legislative action by the commission. You don't have to have been in attendance or even a part of the discussion.
Let's change, okay. Yes,
So, Paul, you made a motion?
I'll second it.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Second item, consideration of public comment. Do we have any public comments?
No, we do not.
Okay. Number 3, reports. Sorry. Yes, reports. Okay.
Yes, the reports of past council action, these are items that affected the HPC over the last year. In April 6th, the council passed ordinance 1924, which adopted the new zoning code, and that includes changes to the historical/heritage preservation process in the city of Kingman. June 1st, Commissioner Seegers was reappointed to the commission. And on October 19th, the City Council passed Ordinance 1931, which changed the name of the Historic Preservation Commission to Heritage Preservation Commission, and changed the number of members from 7 to 5, and also modified certain duties of the HPC. And we'll go through that in a little bit more detail when we get to the presentation part of the meeting.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Item number 4 is new business. Appointment of chair and vice chair.
I was gonna nominate you.
You were gonna nominate me? Okay, I withdraw my nomination. Then you can nominate me.
I nominate Paul for chairman.
Thank you, Mike.
I would serve as vice chair if I could nominate myself.
I'll nominate you for vice chair
Oh,
then.
thank you.
But you gotta vote on the first nomination first.
Oh, so,
You gotta vote on the first one first.
okay, so
In favor for Paul.
all in favor of Paul for chair?
Aye.
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 Okay. And now
I'm
vice
not-
chair.
I nominate Nikki for vice chair.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So, Paul, I do believe you can take over the rest of the meeting if you'd like.
Pull the microphone up to you, Paul. Yes. You gotta hold it down till it turns your ear.
That's good.
I need a clerk. Okay, our next item is the open meeting law training, and I'm glad to see this early in the year. Thank you.
All right. I just wanted to reiterate really quick, as Dawn said, you do have to speak directly into the microphones. If you move your face away, anybody on the recording or joining you via Zoom would not be able to hear you. So it is super important. They don't have much of a range. It has to be direct, and we appreciate you doing that. So the first thing I wanted to do is Rich had mentioned, yes, sir?
What's your name?
I apologize, Chairman Denublo. My name is Annie Meredith, and I get to serve as your city clerk for the city of Kingman.
Thank you.
So as Mr. Ruggles mentioned, your commission was recently had a little bit of restructuring. You have a new name, the Heritage Preservation Commission. You also only now have to have a 5-member instead of 7 commission. The other thing that they did is that they kind of realigned some of your responsibilities, so I want to go over those for you. And all of the information I'm going to share can be found on our City of Kingman website under Heritage Preservation Commission. So the commission shall provide recommendations in accordance with the Kingman zoning code regarding the preservation and restoration of archaeological, historical sites, and properties located in the city for the purpose of preserving the heritage of the City of Kingman. The next one is that the commission shall recommend the preparation of a comprehensive inventory of historic buildings and landmarks in the City of Kingman. The next one, the commission shall increase public awareness of the value of historic, architectural, archaeological, and cultural preservation by developing and participating in public information programs. The commission shall make known the owners of historic properties and the public standards for architectural review and design review of the preservation projects. Next, the commission shall evaluate and comment upon decisions by other public agencies affecting the physical development and land use patterns in historic districts as appropriate. Next, the commission shall hold public hearings as specified in the Kingman zoning code, and the commission shall perform any other functions which may be designated by resolution or motion of the city council. So that was fast, and it is a lot of information, but like I said, you can find all of that on our City of Kingman website.
That mostly is a reiteration of the paper we've been getting over the years, with the addition of that we have a heritage responsibility now, right?
So the rules of this commission did change just slightly, and so that's why we wanted to make sure we reviewed that. When the new ordinance was adopted, renaming you and changing the number of your membership, it also realigned some of the goals for this commission.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So next, I'm going to review the open meeting law. All right. If you have any questions at any point in time or you'd like me to slow down, just let me know. It is pretty uniform. This information has not changed, but we feel it's important, especially since your commission hasn't met for a while, that we review the information, and we do it annually with all of our commissions. So the general provision is that it is the public policy of the state that, hold on, I need to make this smaller so I can read, that meetings of public bodies be conducted openly, and that notices and agendas be provided for such meetings which contain information as is reasonably necessary to inform the public of the matters to be discussed or decided. To this end, any person or entity charged with the interpretations of this law shall construe any provision of this law in favor of open and public meetings. So any and all meetings of any public body have to be public meetings, and all persons that desire shall be permitted to attend and listen to the deliberations and proceedings. Basically, it just means that the public's business has to be conducted in public, and that includes for the hybrid meetings, we do have to allow the option for them to attend or make comment virtually should they choose to do so. Open meeting law is important because it protects the public and it preserves their right to participate in local government. It also protects you guys as public officials and maintains the integrity of the government. It ensures a better informed citizenry, and it builds trust between you guys and the community. Who must comply with open meeting law? You. Each of you as a commission and as individuals. The public body is defined as the legislature, all boards and commissions of the state or political subdivision, all standing, special, or advisory committees or subcommittees appointed by the public body. This is going to include any quasi-judicial bodies. We have some meets as needed boards and commissions like the Board of Adjustments and Building and Boards of Appeals, so these also apply to them. and any subcommittee that you guys may create or designate that's officially established on motion or order of your commission, and whose members have been appointed for the specific purpose of making a recommendation concerning decisions to be made or considered, or a course of conduct to be taken or considered by you as the commission. What constitutes a meeting? The gathering in person or through technological devices of a quorum of members of the public body where they discuss, propose, or take legal action, including any deliberations by a quorum with respect to such action. A quorum is defined as a majority of the members of a board or commission, and your vacant positions do not reduce your quorum requirement. So for your commission, your quorum is 3. So you want to make sure that there are no meetings or conversations, whether virtual or electronic or in person, that have 3 of you at them.
Question.
Yes, sir.
It says emails and Twitters and Pinterest, all of the electronic stuff. I'm specifically concerned about emails. Can we exchange information? And
Not,
just information only between members?
no. What the best practice for that would be is to provide that information to your recording secretary or to a staff liaison and have them send it out to your commission.
Okay.
Because if you forwarded it to everyone, that would constitute a quorum. If you shared it with Commissioner Seegers and she shared it with Commissioner Blair, then that is a quorum as well. So it's best that if you have information that you want to share to the whole commission, that you have Dawn or one of the staff share that for you, and then make sure that you never reply all to an email that's been sent to all of you. Like the meeting notices, make sure you never reply all to those.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. So that leads right into this next slide. So for a meeting, any technological devices, this is not all inclusive, but it kind of incorporates some of the newer technology that people are using. So emails, website, blogs, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Snapchat, Instagram, texting, a conference call, any of that where you have 3 or more members involved would be a quorum. So elected officials should refrain from sending emails or electronic communications to a quorum of the members of the public body. And then, like I mentioned before, in order to avoid serial meetings, that's where you forward it to somebody who forwards it to somebody, and you're splintering your quorum. You want to make sure that you don't propose any legal action or commission business via email. You want to make sure you always bring that to a meeting. And then, like I said, just make sure that if there's something that you want to have brought to your commission, that you just have that put on the agenda for discussion and you don't have those discussions.
Yeah, I see that, but since we only meet every 2 months, there's quite a few items that will be coming up at the first of the year, and I'll just forward it to Dawn.
Correct. Yeah, if there is information that you feel needs to be shared to the other members, most certainly have her send that out for you.
Thank you.
And then, like I said before already, that the splintering a quorum is if 2 of you have lunch and then you leave there and go have coffee or something with another commission member, you've created a quorum. So you want to just be really careful about that. We do have in place a courtesy, what I call a courtesy posting, because we realize that we are a small community and there could be many community events that you would be attending where there is more than one of you at. It's important that if ever you are in that situation, you just make sure that you do not discuss any type of commission business and keep it the conversation very generic so that it doesn't appear as though you may be doing business outside of a public meeting. We have to inform the public, it is the law that no meeting can take place if we have not posted it publicly a minimum of 24 hours in advance. And we do that, we try to make sure we do that several days in advance in case there's any adjustments or amendments that need to be made to agendas. For the city of Kingman, our notice requirements are that it is on our city of Kingman website. All meetings are posted on the posting boards in the lobby of the city complex, and they're also posted in the lobby of our city engineering building across the street. The agenda has to include the notice of the date, time, and location of the meeting, an agenda of specific matters to be discussed, considered, or decided. It has to contain such information as reasonably necessary to inform the public of the matters to be discussed or decided. So you see the summaries on your agenda under the items. That's where we give the public a general idea of what's going to be discussed. It doesn't have to be lengthy and in detail. They just need to be able to have a basic understanding of what the conversation will be. And then the other matters must in some reasonable manner be related to an item specifically listed on the agenda. Only items listed on your agenda or matters related thereto can be discussed, considered, or decided. I cannot reiterate this enough. If it is not on the agenda, it cannot be discussed. And sometimes there can be reports or things that trigger a thought or an idea, and you want to just share it and talk about it really quick. So the best course of action in that instance is to ask staff to put it on the next agenda so that you don't get into an open meeting law violation.
Question.
Yes, sir.
The open discussions, the open public discussion, we cannot discuss that with the people who are making the presentation, right?
You cannot, for call to the public, for call to the public, you cannot, and we will cover that.
Okay, I'll wait.
If you have invited somebody and they are on your agenda to deliver a presentation to you,
They would be on
then
the
they would be on the agenda specifically for that topic, and you could have conversation with them. Yeah. If a matter not on the agenda is brought up, like I said, the best practice is to just get that onto another meeting. If you were to take any action on an item that was not listed properly on the agenda, then that action is void, and it also violates the open meeting law. Here is what you were asking about, sir. For call to the public, it is an agenda item that you do not have to have. It is the commission's choice to have that. We do have that on all of our commissions and on our council agenda, but it is most certainly not required by statute. And what that is it just gives them an opportunity to bring an item or a concern to the commission, and then the commission can direct staff to talk to the person outside of the meeting to gather more information, or if it's something that you think that needs to be discussed by the commission, you can have it brought back on another agenda. So you have 4 options during call to the public. You can respond to criticism. So if you get somebody that comes to your meeting for call to the public and they are personally attacking any member of your commission, once the call to the public has closed, that commission member or whomever does have the opportunity to address the allegation at that time. And then again, you can always have staff review the item, have it put on a further agenda, or you can sit in silence. I call it the awkward silence, where they're looking at you, waiting for you to respond. And it's okay as the chairperson, if they're wanting and asking for a response, that you let them know that you can't provide a conversation at this time, but that you'll have staff follow up with them.
Would you push the button for me to get it right?
I can't push the button, but you can leave it on.
I can. When is it done? I'm concerned about that part. We've had some problems with that. Someone comes up and has an item that is worthwhile being put on the agenda. Do we address that right after they talk, or after all of the open meeting is done?
So after that person speaks,
After that person.
you can request that staff put that on a future agenda item.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And then again, like any other item, it's only permitted if it is specifically on your agenda. One thing we're doing for call to the public during while we're doing hybrid meetings, which I my understanding is we will be continuing to allow a hybrid option into the foreseeable future, is we are allowing the public to register to either call in and provide a public comment or to provide a written comment. So if any of those were to be received before your meeting, the recording secretary would distribute that to you. The public has a right to attend, listen, tape record, and videotape. They do not have the right to speak out of turn. This is really important. Once you have, and even if it is an agendized item, once the person, whether it's an applicant or somebody that's just signed up to talk on that item, once they have said their portion and they've had their 3 minutes, they can't just pipe up again. And we see it a lot in commission meetings where they want to come back and add something. And if that happens, I would just direct them to follow up with staff and provide any additional information that can be sent to the commission at a later time. You don't want them to be disruptive, or sometimes if they're not pleased with whatever the commission's decision is or conversation is, they want to have another word, and that does not that's not how that part works. So there is, unfortunately, there is a sanction for violation. This is not on the commission. If you violate open meeting law, it is on you as a commissioner. The fine is on you personally. The city does not cover that. And it applies to anybody that participated in that violation. So there's a civil penalty, and then you can be removed from office. You can have attorney fees assessed and all of that. And then any legal action, like I said before, that was done during a meeting that was found to be in violation of open meeting law, the action is all void and null, and you would have to redo those items. Conflict of interest. Again, we're a small community. We don't see this as much with your commission as we would maybe in planning and zoning or one of those. But if you do have a conflict of interest, your recording secretary has a form you can fill out ahead of time to recuse yourself from discussion and voting on that matter. It is illegal to fail to declare that conflict under Arizona law or to participate in any discussion where the conflict exists. And this covers all public officers and employees of incorporated cities and towns. And it also applies to private interests of public officials or employees' relatives. So just find out ahead of time if you have any conflicts, and then just let your recording secretary know. Generally, they result when you or a direct family member have some type of substantial ownership or financial gain could come from the action that you're taking. So even as commissioners or as city staff, if we are wanting to participate in any type of formal or public bidding process, it has to go to bid regardless of the dollar amount. So even if it didn't meet procurement's requirement for going to bid, if it involves a commissioner, a council member, or a city employee, it would have to. There are remote interests. If you think that there's a remote interest that's so far removed, we trust your discretion on that, and we know that everybody that's volunteering to be a commissioner for the city of Kingman has the best interest of the city of Kingman in mind. So we just trust that you know what those are. These are the statutes on this. If you have any questions about open meeting law, you can reach out to the city clerk's office or our city attorney's office, and they are happy to discuss it with you as well. So now I'm going to switch really quick over to parliamentary procedures. So what is parliamentary procedure? It is a set of rules for conduct at meetings. It allows everyone to be heard and for you to make decisions without any confusion. It's important because it's a time-tested method of conducting business at meetings and public gatherings, and it can be adapted to fit the needs of any organization. And it's really, these are straight out of Robert's rules. It's just important stuff for you guys to know. Your typical meeting, and you can see on your agenda, it's set up very similar to this. You have your call to order, roll call, pledge, approval of your minutes. You guys don't usually have awards and recognition, but it is an item you could potentially have if you wanted to honor somebody. Your call to the public, any old business, new business, staff reports, and then announcements by commission and staff liaison. Announcements are limited to trainings or conferences or meetings that you have attended that the information is relevant to bring back to your commission. And then you have your adjournment. We're going to talk about a motion and how you make that motion. Motion is the proposal that the entire membership take action or a stand on an issue. This is how each member is able to express themselves. There are 3 basic types of motions that you could use. You guys will mainly use a main motion. The purpose of a main motion is to introduce items to the membership for their consideration. They cannot be made when any other motion is on the floor, and they yield to privileged, subsidiary, and incidental motions. A subsidiary motion is a motion to change or affect how the main motion was handled, and it is voted on before a main motion. And then there's incidental motions whose purpose is to provide a means of questioning procedure concerning other motions, and then it must also be considered before the other motion. The life of a motion, somebody makes a motion. Generally, the chairperson says, I'd like to call for a motion. Somebody will make the motion. They'll say, we have a motion. Is there a second? Somebody will second the motion. They will open it up for discussion, and then once discussion is done, they will call for a vote on the motion. Generally, it's all in favor say aye, any opposed say nay, and then either ayes have it, motion carries, or motion fails. If there's a thought of a motion failing, we generally see that the chairperson would call for a roll call vote just to have that clarity, and then the recording secretary would note it as such. How a motion is presented, you want to make sure that when you're obtaining the floor, you wait until the last speaker is finished. The commissioner should address the chair by saying, Mr. Chairman, or Chair Danublio. You want to make sure that you wait until the chairperson recognizes you. And then when you make your motion, you want to speak in a clear and concise manner. This is the legal action of your commission, and you also want to make sure it can be recorded appropriately. You want to say, I move that this, or whatever the motion is, and then you wait for someone to second it. Or, like I said, sometimes somebody will just say, I second, or the chair, if it's crickets, then the chairperson can call for a second. If there is no second, the motion is lost and it does not carry. And then the motion, a separate motion could be made if there was a desire to do that at that point. The chairman is going to restate the motion. We have a motion to approve such and such. It's been seconded by this. Is there any discussion? And then call for the vote. Once your motion has been presented, it cannot be changed without the consent of your board. So you would have to request to amend your motion or withdraw your motion, and then a new motion could be made. Like I just said, there is an opportunity to expand your motion. The person that made the motion is always allowed to speak first. Any comments or debate or discussion, as I like to say, on it should be directed to the chairman. And then the person that made the motion can speak again only after the other speakers are finished, unless they are called upon by the chairman. And then again, the chairperson will ask if everybody's ready to vote. Voting on a motion, you can do it by voice, by roll call, or by division where you can raise your hand. I would say that with our hybrid meeting situation, raising your hand is not going to work. We would need the verbal so that the people participating and the public that's watching the live stream would be able to hear that. There are other motions that are commonly used, and we do see them. That's the motion to table. So it can be used as an attempt to kill a motion. It's also been used before to get additional information or have staff do some research or get some stuff that helps the commission make a more informed decision. There's also a motion to postpone it indefinitely. And it can be used as a means of parliamentary strategy and allow opponents of a motion to test their strength without an actual vote being taken. And then it also opens up that discussion portion on the main motion.
Ma'am,
Yes, sir.
going back on that, if there's a motion on the floor, how can you go to a motion to table it until you vote on the first motion?
Yeah, so if somebody made a motion to approve or accept or whatever, that motion would have to be withdrawn, or it would have to have died before you could do a new motion. Yeah.
I just wanted to make sure on that.
Yeah. Yeah, this is just saying that there are other motions that could be made. So instead of saying, I make a motion, we approve this, you could say, I make a motion that we table this until our next meeting on whatever date to allow staff to bring us back additional information.
Isn't that against it? You already just said that first motion has to either go one way or the other before you make another motion to table it.
Right, so this would be the motion you make instead of the other motion. So we're saying that other motion was not made, so this would be a motion that you would have an option to make.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. So parliamentary procedure is the best way to get things done at your meeting. It only works, though, if we use it properly. You want to make sure your motions are in order, that the members obtain the floor properly, everybody speaks clearly and concisely, and then you obey the rules of debate and most importantly, be courteous to each other and appreciate the value of everybody's contribution. And with that, I am done. If you guys have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. If not, I'll let you get on to the rest of your meeting.
I have a question on the agenda.
Yes, sir.
Do all of the new items for the agenda have to be made at a meeting, or can they be made by contacting Dawn and say, I would like to put an item on the next agenda?
They can be made by contacting staff, but there is a process for that as well. I know with city council, so many council members have to want an item to be brought to the agenda for it to be able to come to the agenda. So I would just double check with staff what the requirements for your commission are.
Yeah, we're the only ones, I think, that only meet every other month, and items would come up that should be on the agenda, could be on the agenda, and it'll save us quite a bit of time. We don't have to wait another 2 months to address a good item.
Yeah.
What's your schedule for getting out an agenda? I mean, how soon can you, if you get a motion, an item for new business, how much lead time do you need to put it on the agenda?
We typically try to get the agenda completed the Thursday before the Tuesday of the meeting.
The Thursday before the Tuesday?
Yes.
Okay.
It's Thursday, the week before your meeting.
Before, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And that's really cutting it close because the city complex is not open on Fridays. And so if we don't get that agenda posted by the end of business on Thursday, then you're really it wouldn't get posted until Monday, and you're barely giving that 24 hours for the commission and for the public to be able to review that material.
So the process is tell staff, and staff will tell you the Thursday before the meeting Tuesday. Why would it go to staff and not to the president of the commission?
Well, because staff builds your agendas. So you could have a commissioner said, hey, what do you think about bringing this to the thing? But it doesn't have to come from the chairperson. Any commissioner could ask that an item be brought forward.
Right.
And then Your recording secretary could share that information with all of you so that you can avoid an open meeting law violation by sharing it amongst yourselves.
Okay, let's have it work this way. The chairman and staff, the Thursday before the Tuesday before the meeting, at the latest, will sit down and prepare the agenda. Or not sit down, but agree on the agenda. How's that sound?
Well,
I think that so we are definitely getting off subject of the presentation. So what I would recommend is that you call Mr. Ruggles and make a plan for how that will be handled. It is outlined in our commission's ordinance, how agenda preparation is done. And I don't have that with me to share with you, but I would definitely say that's a conversation you can have with him outside of the meeting.
Okay, sound good? Does that sound right?
Yes, sir, that we can certainly prepare the meeting ahead of time. I would like to do it more than, say, the Thursday before the meeting. It's usually best to do it a couple weeks in advance. That way we have time to prepare any documents or anything that needs to go along with the item.
Well, that would be the latest. That would be the drop
Yes, sir.
dead date, the Thursday before the Tuesday. I'm getting good at this now. Thursday before the Tuesday would be the latest
Yes, sir.
that I would submit for the agenda, any new business items, okay?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
All right, if there are no other questions, I will leave you to your meeting. Thank you so much for letting us come present to you today.
I just need to have you read the item C, and then I can do my presentation.
Item C, a presentation of the heritage preservation, planning and zoning, made by planning and zoning, on the changes to the Historic Preservation Committee and the current rules for the Historic Preservation Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. My name is Rich Ruggles. I'm the Planning Services Manager for the City of Kingman. So I'll be giving a little short presentation on some of the changes that have occurred with the Heritage Preservation Commission in the last, basically in the last year since you last were able to meet. And these are changes to both the zoning that are in the new zoning code as well as the Kingman Municipal Code. The first item, which Annie mentioned earlier, is that the name change from Historic Preservation Commission to the Heritage Preservation Commission in both the zoning code and more recently in the municipal code. And the purpose of doing that change is to reflect the broader goal of preserving objects, structures, natural features, sites, places, and areas within the city of Kingman that have historic, architectural, archaeological, cultural, or aesthetic significance for the nation, region, state, or city. As Annie went over the changes to the code, which was brought by Ordinance 1931, reduction in the number of members from 7 to 5. We do meet odd number of months, so 6 meetings per year. As you know, we have not been able to hold a meeting last year, so we're hopeful that with a reduction in the number of members, it'll be easier to have a quorum going forward. And we do have 1 vacancy still to fill at this point. And Annie also went over this portion of my presentation as well, so that was kind of fortunate. But this is a list of the changes to the commission duties that was changed by this ordinance. The new language is in the bold, capitalized wording, as you can see on this slide. Anything that was removed is crossed out. So getting into the reasoning behind some of these changes, the Kingman zoning ordinance itself was originally adopted in 1971. The text was amended over 290 times with 516 zone changes that were processed over nearly 50 years. So there are a lot of changes in the old ordinance. Among those things that occurred during that time frame was the adoption of the Historic Overlay District with the design guidelines that was added to the ordinance in 1986. And this is the Historic Overlay Zone in Kingman. It stretches from the powerhouse to the train depot and extends on the north side of Annie Devine from 1st to 4th Street. The boundaries of this district did not change in the new code. And so the adoption of the new code was this is kind of goes over the reasons for that. The process began in July of 2019. LWC was the consultant that was selected. It took about 2 years. The new code went into effect at June 6th. And the key code improvements of the new zoning code is that it's improved usability. It has now modern zoning districts and use regulations, consistent development standards, development review and approval processes that are more clear, and is now in conformance with state and federal laws. The historic preservation portion of the code was updated by our consultant, Carl Eberhard, who did a presentation to the commission last November. This is just a little bio of his background. He was the City of Flagstaff Historic Preservation Officer for 13 years. So now we get into, this slide gets into the actual changes that are within the zoning code itself. You've already seen I already went over the first paragraph. Second section that is different from the old code is that the Community Development Manager acts as the Historic Preservation Officer for the City of Kingman. And those duties include managing heritage preservation projects, activity surveys, and investigations, providing technical assistance and recommendations on preservation matters to the HPC, other commissions, and the council. They make recommendations to this commission on designation of cultural resources, including landmark properties, and historic districts, serves as a liaison between the city, SHPO, and other similar agencies, and also serves as the liaison between this commission, the public property owners, staff, and council. At the moment, we do not have a permanent community development manager for the City of Kingman. Sean Osterman is in an acting capacity there, also as acting as building official, and also myself, as well as Sylvia Schaefer and Gary, all provide assistance to this commission. So we're your resources moving forward, and at least until we have a permanent full-time community development manager for the city. So within the zoning code itself, we have a section called Heritage Preservation Procedures, and this applies to the Historic Overlay District that I described, the landmark properties, which I'll describe in a moment, and what are called cultural resource studies. So this section designates or describes the process to designate or expand a historic overlay district, as well as the designating of landmark properties. The difference between a district and a landmark property is that a district is a group of sort of geographically congruent or that are adjacent to each other properties that are historically significant. A landmark property is generally an individual property, or could be even a sign that has historic or cultural significance. And that is something that could be anywhere in the city, not just within the overlay district.
Give an example of a landmark property.
Well, we don't have any in Kingman currently, but I guess an example of some place that you might consider would be perhaps the Hilltop Motel here in town that has that significant sign on Route 66. It's on Route 66. It has a historic aspect to it. It's not within the district, but it might be something that you could consider designating as landmark property with the owner's permission.
Yeah, it would be something outside a current historic district.
Yes, sir.
That has significant historical value.
Right.
I've got a couple of questions. You talked faster than I could change pages. Maintain, going back to the commission duties, prepare or cause to be prepared is what something we did, a comprehensive inventory of historic buildings. We have or had in the past a large book that listed every historic property. Who holds that now if it's not the commission?
Well, we do have a list of historic properties in Kingman. We have spreadsheets that include that information. And we do have a booklet that has that information in it.
It's a fairly large
Yes.
book that has all the single pages of every property. Who's going to hold that now?
Well, we hold it. I mean, we
The
have.
commission or somebody else?
Well, we possess that book, and we possess the information. The city has that
The
information.
city has it?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Thank you.
Okay. Let's see. So there is a process for developing property within the historic overlay district, or if it's a landmark property. There's an appendix within the zoning code that outlines all the design and development guidelines that are applicable to these types of properties. And these are based on industry standards and guidelines, including the Secretary of Interior guidelines, National Park Service's best practices. And there's also a certification process for the historic preservation officer to use on any work that's proposed to be done within the district. Also, there's something called cultural resource studies, and these can be required for, depending on what it is, for development of properties within or even adjacent to the historic overlay district. So this slide describes the process to either add a new historic overlay district or add property to an existing district. That process may be initiated by the council, by this commission, or owners of the affected properties. If the applicant is not the entire property owner, in other words, it includes other properties within the area being considered for, say, an expansion of a district, the petition needs to be turned in with that application that would be signed by the owners of at least 51% of the included parcels. Also, if it's a new district, there's a requirement for a neighborhood meeting to be held for those within the affected area, as well as those within 300 feet of the proposed district. The Historic Preservation Officer would then provide a staff report to this commission. We would hold a hearing at this meeting, would review the proposed development, and then a written recommendation would be made by this commission to the P&Z Commission and to the City Council. The P&Z Commission will also hold a hearing separately and would also make a recommendation to the council on whatever is being proposed. The City Council would then have a final, would have another hearing, and there'd be a final say on exactly whether the district would be expanded or be created. And that requires a majority vote of the council. So when we initially started the zoning code update, we had intended to look at possibly expanding the historic overlay district. One of the things that Carl Eberhard identified, though, in this process is the need for a new context study. And that is basically the study that identifies the historic properties within the area. The last complete one that was done for the city of Kingman was back in the mid-1980s and is out of date. So for there to be a new historic overlay district or expansion of one, a context study is really needed to establish the rationale for that expansion, also to suggest the appropriate boundaries of the district. So in order to do that, we would have to hire a consultant who has experience in this area to do the work, and there may be grant money available to do this sort of thing, to assist in the cost of doing the study. Our consultant, again, Mr. Eberhardt, did emphasize the need for a citizen champion. In other words, someone that would be there on the ground, working with the properties being considered for the district or for the expansion of the district, that would sort of get property owner input and acceptance of the idea. However, in the interim, the landmark property designation process is another alternative and is a bit simpler process. So the landmark designation, that is applicable to individual properties and signs, and again, may be issued by the council, this commission, or the owner of the affected property. Property owner consent is required. The historic preservation officer, again, provides a staff report to this commission. You then hold a hearing, consider what's being proposed. Then that goes to the P&Z Commission for a further hearing, and then eventually to the council. And by a majority vote of the council, they can establish the landmark property. So then a cultural resource study, that is something that occurs in cases where either a property that is historic is being affected by some sort of change, or something significant is happening within the district that it's determined that a resource study is needed. And the 4 questions that will be answered by a resource study is that, is the resource significant that's being proposed to be potentially altered? Does the resource have integrity? Will the proposed work negatively impact the resource? And how can the negative impacts be mitigated? So basically the reason to do a study is it allows property owners, designers, and decision makers to make informed decisions regarding any historic property. So there are different levels of review that could occur, and this is outlined within the zoning code. There may be a situation where it's determined that no study is actually required, and that's determined by the historic preservation officer under certain criteria. It's what's called a letter report, which is very limited in scope and typically answers one of those 4 questions that I mentioned. Phase 1 is more detailed and tries to answer all 4 questions. Phase 2 would be something that if a historic building were to be demolished, for example, that documents that process and what can be done, maybe to save it or mitigate that process. Phase 3 is something called the archaeological data collection report. Phases 1, 2, and 3 would be things that would be reviewed by this commission. Only the first 2 would not go before this commission. So that kind of goes over the heritage preservation portion of the code, but we also have within the downtown area something that is also happening with the change of the zones. We've adopted what are called transit zones for portions of the downtown area. This includes part of the area that's within the historic overlay district along the north side of Andy Devine between 1st and 4th Street. These are form-based codes, and what a form-based code is that the design of the building is the main regulating factor, and the use is secondary. Form-based codes tries to provide a pedestrian-friendly and walkable downtown, and it builds from the existing form and character of the downtown area. So you can see on the map here, part of the area on the north side of Andy Devine is, it's hard to read on this slide, but it's T5MS, which stands for Transit Zone 5 Main Street, and that kind of replaces the C3 zone in that area. However, most of the uses that are allowed in the original districts are also allowed in the new districts. Also part of the form-based code is we have supplemental standards on how buildings would be constructed or maintained, and that it encourages things like, for example, walkways, covered walkways in the downtown area. One good example to think of is the old Elks Lodge downtown, which already has this sort of feature. This is just one example on the slide of what could be achieved with these standards. The other thing is civic spaces. Again, we don't really have that so far, but if the city were to create a civic space on part of its property or in the area, this basically sets the design standards for how that would be, how that would occur. So I just wanted to touch on that because it does affect the downtown area. So that concludes my presentation, and I'll be happy to answer any questions you might have or any thoughts you might have.
Yeah, a question. The HPO, who is that? Did you say we don't have one yet, or?
The HPO is the Community Development Manager, and that position currently is being, we have an interim person, that's
Who's that?
Mr. Osterman, that's Sean Osterman. Sean Osterman is the
Sean?
interim, yes.
Okay.
So until we have a permanent person in place, he's taking some of those duties. Mhm.
What department are you with, Sean?
In the fire department.
The fire department? That's good. Thank you very much.
Yeah, so, hi, my name's Sean Osterman. I am the interim community development manager. So I'm serving in the capacity over the community development. So I technically am the officer that would represent you guys in the zoning ordinance has exceptions on things that I can make decisions on. But like Rich said, it's not something that I'm gonna do on my own. We're gonna do it as a team. Essentially, the decision would come from me. However, it would come from our team. So
Who's your team?
so the team is who Rich. So it'd be Rich Ruggles, Sylvia Schaefer with Economic Development, and then Gary Likeness is one of our planners as well. So
Okay. Is he a planner?
Yep.
That gentleman right there?
that's Gary back there.
Okay.
Yes,
Yeah, I'm just trying to get my arms around
absolutely, absolutely.
the procedure here. Thank you. I have one more question, Rich, that got by me. Can you, I don't see, well, when we changed the name to the Heritage Preservation Commission, that started to include cultural. In the past, we've always addressed buildings, things like that. Even, I think we even have the locomotive on the list, right?
Yes, sir. Mhm.
All right. Heritage, when you say heritage, also includes cultural. And I know you talked about cultural resource study and all of that. Give a definition of a cultural resource, because I've always felt that museums took care of cultural preservation. It's a little hard. Cultural preservation would be how it developed culturally, like the Indians, the miners, the railroad, pretty significant cattle raising here.
Right. I think that you touched on things that are certainly part of the culture here. Also, probably Route 66 is a big part of our culture here in Kingman. So something that was related, say, to preserving the Route 66 heritage of this area would be part of that, I think.
Well, that would be buildings, wouldn't it?
It could be buildings, but it could be other aspects of it as well. Just the experience of being on the road and things like that. It could be, things that you want to preserve, the views, the landscape. It could be other things that affect those
Landscapes, you
areas.
say? Landscapes?
Well, it could be any number of things that affect the what you're trying to preserve, the cultural item that you're trying to preserve.
Well, give me an example of one cultural aspect that we currently have here or should address.
Well, that would be one. Another one that probably hasn't been, it exists, but it probably should get more attention might be Campbell Springs.
The Springs up
Because it has,
up at Fort Beale?
yeah.
Yeah,
Yes, sir.
okay.
Because there is that historic,
That's part of the military culture that was
right.
here. There was a military road that went through here that went all the way into California.
Right. And you have the wagon trail, the White Cliffs
the
Wagon Trail. and-
marks,
Yeah, yeah. And so, and those aren't buildings, obviously, but they are part of our culture, part of our heritage.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Sure.
Okay, we have covered heritage preservation. The next item is announcements by commission members. Anyone have an announcement?
Need to read that out loud, please.
Pardon me?
You need to read all of that wording out loud.
I have to read it all now? Oh. Limited to announcements, availability or attendance at conferences and seminars, requests for agenda items for future meetings, and requests for reports from staff. No discussion on any of these items can be done. Anything new that's brought up in here, we cannot, we can't discuss them. Anybody?
I have something.
Yes, ma'am.
There was talk of maybe preservation of the fire station downtown. Could we add that to next time's agenda?
Yes.
Just an update?
We're talking about the one that's next to the Oddfellows down here? Yeah, yes, we could, I could certainly research that.
Thank you.
We'll put that on the agenda for, as new business, next meeting.
Yes, sir, we can do that.
Okay. All right. Hotel Beale, or Beale Hotel, whatever it's called.
What about it? You want that on the agenda?
The last meeting, we didn't get notice of the last meeting that was held. There was 2 meetings that were held that I was in attendance on, and there was no notice, or there weren't any minutes. Do they make minutes of those kind of meetings that we had when we discussed the Hotel Beale Hotel?
Well, the last meeting this commission had was November of last year. So there were meetings prior to that, and there were meeting minutes. I can certainly look at meeting minutes where that item was discussed, if that's your question.
Well, we didn't get it. We didn't get minutes of it in a phone conversation with the city manager. It is turned over to the city, and the city is making discussions with the owners to try to resolve some of the open items that they have. We're not involved in it any longer, are we?
Yeah. Well, what I will do is I'll speak with the city manager, and we can provide you an update at the next meeting as to where things stand with that.
Okay,
situation.
thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, that'll work.
Yes, I'd be interested in that because that goes back to when I still had my business.
I go back, there's an item on here that goes back to 2017 that was proposed and not implemented. 2017.
Well, there's a very interesting, I'll have to get into it when we get the discussion on that, on the Beale.
Okay. All right, I move we adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
That would be to March. What would be the date of that one? March what?
The next meeting will be
Sorry, February.
January 25th.
What? Okay.
January 25th.
To January. Anybody got a calendar? What would be the date of our next meeting? 25th? Hey, you got that memorized? Okay. We adjourn to January 25. Thank you. I got all this paper.